Hi everybody, my name's Canela Michelle Meyers, and I feel to read something to you this morning that I read to a friend that I felt would be supportive to her, and this actually so fits how I see what's happening here that we call life, in a way that love is what is igniting all that is. So I feel to just read this one chapter to all of you, in support of you. If this fits, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But the intention is that it supports you, because I find it's quite supportive. It's from a book called Your Invisible Power by Genevieve Behrend, and it was pointed out to me by Mary Morrissey and her team. And it's about her teacher, Genevieve's, who is Thomas Troward. And I'll put the information down in the description below, so you can find these people and the good work that they have done years ago. This book was published in 1951. Here's the book. Yeah. So, the chapter I feel to read is chapter 8, and it's her story, Genevieve's, pardon me. And so it's called Why I Took Up the Study of Mental Science. This is what she calls it. I have frequently been questioned about my reasons for taking up the study of mental science, and as to the results of my search, not only in the knowledge of principles, but also in the application of that knowledge for the development of my own life. Such inquiries are justifiable, because one who essays the role of a messenger of psychological truths can only be convincing as she or he has tested them in the laboratory of personal mental experience. And I would agree with that. This is particularly true in my case as the only personal pupil of Judge Troward, the great master in mental science, whose teaching is based upon the relation born by the individual mind toward the universal creative mind, which is the giver of life, and the manner in which that relation may be invoked to secure expansion and fuller expression of the individual life. This is where it's right along what I like to support people to live your life fully and more fully and more fully. Back to her. My initial impulse toward the study of mental science was an overwhelming sense of loneliness. In every life, there must come some such experience. Of spiritual isolation as pervaded my life at that period. Notwithstanding the fact that each day found me in the midst of friends, surrounded by mirth and gaiety, there was a persistent feeling that I was alone in the world. I had been a widow for about 3 years, wandering from country to country, seeking for peace of mind. The circumstances and surroundings of my life were such that my friends looked upon me as an unusually fortunate young woman. Although they recognized that I had sustained a great loss when my husband died, they knew that he had left me well provided for, free to go anywhere my pleasure dictated. Yet, if my friends could have penetrated my innermost emotions, they would have found a deep sense of emptiness and isolation. This feeling inspired a spirit of unrest which drove me on in fruitless search upon the outside for that which I later learned could only be found within. You might find some correlations to what I've been pointing to there too. Now we're back to Genevieve. I studied Christian Science, but it gave me no solstice. Though fully realizing the great work the scientists were doing, and even having had the pleasure and privilege of meeting Mrs. Eddy personally, but it was impossible for me to accept the fundamental teachings of Christian Science and make practical application of it. When about to abandon the search for contentment and resign myself to resume a life of apparent amusement, a friend invited me to visit the great seer and teacher Abdu'l-Baha. After my interview with this most wonderful of men, my search for contentment began to take a change. He had told me that I would travel the world over, seeking the truth, and when I had found it, would speak it out. The fulfillment of the statement of this great seer then seemed to be impossible, but it carried a measure of encouragement, and at least indicated that my former seeking had been in the wrong direction. I began in a feeble, groping way to find contentment within myself, for had he not intimated that I should find the truth? That was the big thing, and about the only thing I remember of our interview. The truth is found within. Yes, yes, yes. A few days later, upon visiting the office of a new thought practitioner, my attention was attracted to a book on his table entitled The Edinburgh Lectures on Mental Science by T. Troward. It interested me to see that Troward was a retired divisional judge from the Punjab, India. I purchased the book, thinking I would read it through that evening. Many have endeavored to do the same thing, only to find, as I did, that the book must be studied in order to be understood, and hundreds have decided, just as I did, to give it their undivided attention. After finding the treasure book, I went to the country for a few days, and while there studied the volume as thoroughly as I could. It seemed extremely difficult, and I decided to purchase another book of Troward's in the hope that its study might not require so much of an effort. Upon inquiry, I was told that a subsequent volume, called the Dore Lectures, was much the simpler and better of the two books. When I procured it, I found that it also must be studied. It took me weeks and months to get even a vague conception of the meaning of the first chapter of Dore, which is entitled, in quotes, Entering into the Spirit of It, end of quote. I mean by this that it took me months to enter into the spirit of what I was reading. It doesn't mean that that will be how long it will take for anyone to invite the spirit of any truth book that points to that. Because this was in 1951. We have evolved from there. Much more is available. Back to the book. But in the meantime, a paragraph from page 26 to 27 arrested my attention as seeming the greatest thing I'd ever read. I memorized it and endeavored with all of my soul to enter into the spirit of Troward's words. The paragraph reads, beginning of quote, My mind is a center of divine operation. The divine operation is always for expansion and fuller expression, and this means the production of something beyond what has gone before, something entirely new, not included in the past experience, though proceeding out of it by an orderly sequence of growth. Therefore, since the divine cannot change its inherent nature, it must operate in the same manner with me, consequently in my own special world, of which I am the center. It will move forward to produce new conditions, always in advance of any that have gone before. End of quote. It took an effort on my part to memorize this paragraph, but in the endeavor toward this end, the words seemed to carry with them a certain stimulus. Each repetition of the paragraph made it easier for me to enter into the spirit of it. Side note from Canela, the spirit enters you equally. The words expressed exactly what I have been seeking for. My one desire was for peace of mind. I found it comforting to believe that the divine operation in me could expand to fuller expression and produce more and more contentment. In fact, a peace of mind and a degree of contentment greater than I had ever known. The paragraph further inspired me with the deep interest to feel that the life spark in me could bring into my life something entirely new. I did not wish to obliterate my past experience, but that was exactly what Troward said it would not do. The divine operation would not exclude my past experience. No need to get away from yourself. That was me. A little side note again. The divine operation would not exclude my past experience, but proceeding out of it would bring some new thing that would transcend anything that I had ever experienced before. Side note from Canela, consciousness wants to become even more conscious of life as it spills around. End of quote by Canela. Meditation on these statements brought with it a certain joyous feeling. What a wonderful thing it would be if I could accept and sincerely believe beyond all doubt that this one statement of Troward's was true. Surely the divine could not change its inherent nature, and since divine life is operating in me, I must be divinely inhabited, and the divine in me must operate just as it operates upon the universal plane. Yes. This meant that my whole world of circumstances, friends, and conditions would ultimately become a world of contentment and enjoyment, of which I am the center. End of quote. This would all happen just as soon as I was able to control my mind and thereby provide a concrete center around which the divine energies would play. Surely it was worth trying for. If Troward had found the truth, why not I? The idea held me to my task. Later I determined to study with the man who had realized and given the world so great a statement. It had lifted me from my state of despondency. The immediate difficulty was the need for increased finances. End of chapter 8. Chapter 9 is another one. If you like this, I'll go ahead on the next chapter. For now, though, I just wish to add a few pointers to underline that everything that's ever happened, that you have experienced, is part of this moment right here, right now. Every thought, everything has come from the same universal energy that enlivens you as a person living and breathing, heart pumping, the ability to even hear and see these thoughts. Such a gift, a beautiful gift. May you land more and more deeply with all of that. Thank you for listening. And bless you on your journey, and your comments, likes, and sharing are welcome. Thank you.